Senator Chuck Schumer caves to Republicans to avoid a government shutdown and the blowback with it. The PR teams of both parties are in full swing to varying effect. Columbia University expels pro-Hamas rioters as the New York Police Department arrests a different group of pro-Hamas protesters occupying the lobby of Trump Tower in New York City. I'm Tony Kinnett from the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett Cast, syndicated nationally at 7 p.m. Eastern. It is Pi Day, or Friday, March 14th, 2025. This is the Daily Signal's top news in 10. Well, Senator Chuck Schumer's original plan to not allow the Republicans' continuing resolution bill to pass through the Senate with the 60 votes that would be needed to refrain from filibustering the bill and therefore prevent the government from shutting down didn't pan out. The political blowback was getting worse and worse by the second as it was made more clear that Senate Democrats would be charged with the government shutdown. At the same time, representatives like Democrat Jasmine Crockett got up on social media to say interesting things about why maybe the Democrats wanted a government shutdown.
In my opinion, if we're shut down, you can't be fired. And what does that mean? It does mean that people will not be paid, but it does mean that they will get their back pay. So hopefully we can stop some of the bleeding. We just saw that the Department of Education laid off 50% of their workforce. So I don't really understand why anybody would say, oh, we got to take the high road. Listen, he is decimating the federal government. And you're talking about whether or not we're going to keep the doors open. He literally is shutting down departments anyway.
With senators like John Fetterman of Pennsylvania expressing dismay at the idea of the already struggling Democratic Party being hit with the extremely unpopular government shutdown amid the chaos the party is already facing, Senator Chuck Schumer came forward yesterday evening and announced that he would go through with voting for the continuing resolution after all.
I believe it is my job to make the best choice for the country, to minimize the harms to the American people. Therefore, I will vote to keep the government open and not shut it down. There is nobody in the world, nobody, who wants to shut the government down more than Donald Trump and more than Elon Musk. We should not give it to them. And make no mistake, Democrats will continue to fight what Donald Trump is doing. Everything that Trump, Musk, and Republicans have done so far has a clear goal. Again, cutting taxes for billionaires, eviscerate Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. This is the fight that matters most, and the fight we must focus on. All the chaos we have seen, all the lawlessness, all the grift and corrupt behavior. It's all about rigging the system in favor of the ultra-wealthy at the expense of working Americans. This is the fight the American people need to see. This is the fight that Democrats will win. A shutdown will be a costly distraction from this all-important fight. I yield the floor.
While Senator Schumer tried to make the case that Donald Trump, the President of the United States, was the one who really wanted a government shutdown, the President of the United States would have to sign the continuing resolution into law after it passed the Senate, meaning that if President Trump wanted to, he could just not sign or veto the continuing resolution. So that accusation doesn't quite work out. The PR and comms teams on both the left and the right are working overtime after a series of polls showing that while many Americans were in favor of how President Trump and his administration were handling illegal immigration, many of those same Americans were not a fan of the president's tariffs and economic policies so far. Vice President J.D. Vance came out yesterday to dig in a little bit more to the strategy of the Trump administration and its tariff policy.
Well, look, I think you never can predict the future, but I think the economy, the fundamentals of the economy are actually quite strong right now. And we'll see how this unfolds, Laura. But I think that by inducing more businesses to invest in American workers, by reshoring some of those critical supply chains, we are going to make this economy stronger over the long haul. And that is the president's ultimate goal. We have to remember, Laura, people forget 5 years ago, of course, we had the COVID crisis. And aside from the public health element of it, what it should have taught us, Laura, is we can't rely on communist China to make all the critical stuff. You had hospitals that didn't have medical supplies. You had businesses, manufacturing businesses that couldn't get core raw materials because China was shut down. What the president is doing is changing 40 years of a failed bipartisan consensus in Washington, D.C. that has sold out American workers and destroyed the underlying economic strength of the United States of America. We're going to rebuild it. It's going to take a little time, but we are going to do it.
The left side of the aisle is engaging in some interesting PR campaigns as well. Sarah McBride, the biological male transgender member of Congress from Delaware, held a press conference yesterday suggesting that all Republicans were far too focused on culture war issues, calling them weird and bizarre.
We will not take a lecture on decorum from a party that incited an insurrection. I appear to live rent-free in the minds of some of my Republican colleagues. I wish that they would spend even a fraction of the time that they spend thinking about me, thinking about how to lower the costs for American families. I wish they would spend a fraction of the time that they spend thinking about me, figuring out how to make government actually work better, rather than making it work worse in order to prove that government can't work. They are obsessed with culture war issues. The Republican Party is obsessed with culture war issues. It is weird and it is bizarre, and the American people deserve serious legislators, serious elected officials who are focused on bringing people together to deliver real results for the American people, not to play games and not to engage in schoolyard taunts.
Representative Maxine Waters took a little bit of time to suggest that President Donald Trump was preparing for violence and a civil war.
What does Trump expect? Oh, I believe he expects violence. I believe he expects confrontation. I believe he's working toward a civil war.
We regret to inform that Representative Raul Grijalva, an Arizona Democrat, passed away at 77 due to complications from his cancer treatment. Unfortunately, his passing was overshadowed after it appeared that members of his staff continued tweeting about President Trump and the Department of Education and protecting students' civil rights from the late representative's Twitter account long after the representative had passed away. On the university front, Columbia University released a statement today announcing that it had expelled, suspended, or has revoked degrees from some of the students who seized a building during a pro-Palestinian protest. This comes after the Trump administration pulled over $400 million in grants from Columbia University because it said that the university did not handle the series of anti-Semitic crimes, protests, and riots on campus in a manner that held with civil rights law. Meanwhile, a large group of red shirt-wearing protesters stormed the lobby of the Trump Tower in New York City, chanting for the release of Mahmoud Khalil, the foreign national whose visa was revoked after he distributed materials endorsing the foreign terror organization Hamas. Many members of the group were later arrested by the New York City Police Department for trespassing, disturbance, and harassment. On Wednesday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio responded to the criticisms from the left that the imprisonment and deportation of Khalil was somehow a violation of the First Amendment.
President Trump appealed to a lot of Americans during his campaign on free speech arguments and not suppressing speech, especially from the government. But your revocation of the green card, to many, is seen as one of the most anti-speech actions a secretary can take with his powers. How do you respond?
Yeah, when you enter this is an important point, and I'm glad you asked this question. When you come to the United States as a visitor, which is what a visa is, which is how this individual entered this country, as on a visitor's visa, okay, you are here as a visitor. We can deny you that visa. We can deny you that if you tell us when you apply, hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity, that returns more bodies than live hostages. If you tell us that you are in favor of a group like this, and if you tell us when you apply for your visa, and by the way, I intend to come to your country as a student, and rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student, anti-Semitic activities. I intend to shut down your universities. If you told us all these things when you applied for a visa, we would deny your visa. I hope we would. If you actually end up doing that, once you're in this country on such a visa, we will revoke it. And if you end up having a green card, not citizenship, but a green card as a result of that visa while you're here in those activities, we're going to kick you out. It's as simple as that. This is not about free speech. This is about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with.
Before you go, check the description below to make sure you're subscribed to the Tony Kinnett, and join us tonight at 7 p.m. to close out this hectic week. I'm Tony Kinnett, and this has been the Daily Signal's Top News in 10. Take care.